Okay, guys, and we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Sidequest. I'm Seth from the Lonely Stoner podcast, and this is episode 58 of my side quest. Now, in this episode, we're going to be talking about the recent article and comments from Nate Diaz saying he wants to come back to the UFC and win a world championship. We're going to look at his record, and we're going to talk about this guy's never winning a world championship. Nate Diaz is a fighter who's been in the UFC and been in MMA for years and years and years now. Made his debut in 2004. So this guy's been fighting. If he was to fight again, he would have been fighting for over 20 years. His record currently stands at 21 and 13. And again, like I said, the fact that a guy with 13 losses could even sort of be in the conversations of thinking he could come back and win a world title is crazy, considering he's never won a world championship before. In boxing, this sort of thing would never happen. But I guess that's part of why we love MMA so much. But Nate Diaz he's 39. Like I said, 21 wins, 13 losses. He's got how many wins has he got in his last five? He's got 2 wins in his last five, which of course is bad. No doubt is bad. But his last win came over 3 years ago, or nearly 3 years ago, against Tony Ferguson at UFC 279, and that was the main event. And Nate Diaz beat him, and that really shows the sort of fall off for Tony Ferguson. The fact that you're losing to Nate Diaz, getting subbed in the fourth round is a bit ridiculous and shows how much Tony Ferguson had fallen off. But prior to that, he had lost to Leon Edwards and then lost to Jorge Masvidal. He beat Anthony Pettis in a unanimous decision at UFC 241. That comes 3 years after his loss to Conor McGregor. And I guess we'll talk about the two Conor McGregor fights for Nate Diaz, where the first fight was getting the brakes beaten off of him. Conor was absolutely butchering him. Then Conor gasses and Nate subs him. And then in the second fight, we see a much more measured approach from Conor, and he just about wins the decision. I think Conor did win the decision when I watched that fight. I haven't watched it in quite some years now, but I remember watching it thinking, yeah, Conor's probably done enough to win that. But that's really the crown jewel in Nate Diaz's career. Of course, it's a major crown jewel to have. A win over Conor McGregor is nothing to be scoffed at, particularly then. But when you look at that win and you look at what really happened, it's not like Nate went out there and steamrolled Conor. Not at all. He was just able to take the beating, and then when Conor got gassed, he was dead. He was able to stay the course and then submit Conor. Conor wasn't getting outclassed at all. Not until he got tired, right? And then Conor made the appropriate adjustments for the second fight and won. Then obviously loses to Jorge Masvidal, loses to Leon Edwards, and then beats Tony Ferguson. That being said, his only respectable win in the past 10 years is Conor McGregor. Anthony Pettis, 2019 was past it. I mean, Anthony Pettis, even during his prime, it was a very short prime Anthony Pettis had when he was UFC champion. But by 2019 was way past it. Same with Tony Ferguson when he faced him in 2022, way past it. To be fair, in the Leon Edwards fight, even though he did pretty much get, in my opinion, we got pretty much outclassed for the most part of that fight. Leon Edwards did get rocked by Nate Diaz at one point, but being honest, Nate Diaz, even if he rocks you, he's not got the ferociousness to put a stop to you. That's not his last TKO finish was in 2013 against Gray Maynard. That was his last TKO win 12 years ago. So, Nate Diaz isn't coming back. I mean, no, let me not say he's not coming back. He said he wants to come back. But if he does come back, what's going to happen? He's not getting a world title shot. Whether that's at welterweight or lightweight, he's not getting a world title shot. Say he does, he's not beating those guys, right? Nate Diaz doesn't stand a prayer's chance against Islam and doesn't stand a chance against Bilal. That being said, he stands more of a chance against Bilal because Bilal's worse than Islam. But Bilal will have no problem just wrestling him, holding him against the cage and wrestling him. He'll have no problem at all. And he'll pick him up, he'll dump him down. It'll be just a worse version of the Leon Edwards fight. Because Nate Diaz is less skilled, less athletic, older, slower, and weaker than Leon Edwards. I mean, it sounds pretty harsh, but that's the reality of it. That's the reality of fighting, right? I get Nate Diaz saying that he wants to obviously generate some hype and get his name back out there, but he's not coming. I don't want to say he's not coming back because he could come back, but he's not coming back for a world title. The UFC would be crazy to give him a world title shot. That's not happening. And he'll be lucky to get a win. I'll be real, because I would say, in my opinion, he's somewhat of a UFC legend, even though he's, pretty much a 50-50 fighter throughout his entire UFC career, apart from, the early days in the UFC when he first came over. Since probably 2009, he's been more or less a 50-50 fighter. Win one, lose two, win, you know what I mean? 50-50 fighter. So, even then, some people will be saying he's not even a UFC legend. He probably is because of his win over Conor McGregor. But I mean, in my opinion, one win shouldn't make you a UFC legend. But hey ho, some people it does. But they would say he's a UFC legend. UFC don't treat their legends good. Look at Jose Aldo, right? Just getting fed to young guys, no favourable matchups at all. Yeah, like I said, look at Aldo. Look at Anderson Silva. Wasn't really given any favourable matchups. A handful, maybe. Look at the way they did Vitor Belfort. Like, look at the UFC legends, Shogun, loads of guys. And they just fed them to the wolves. No mercy. Like, you're old, you're past your prime, you still want to fight? Okay, we'll make you pay for it, right? They'll do the same to Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz, if he was to come back at welterweight or lightweight, he would be fighting... I don't even know who he'd be fighting. Because you can't really give him a ranked guy, because he's not good enough. Be honest, he's not good enough. I mean, I'd love to see them give him like a Carlos Prates and just have Prates, just rip through this guy and probably stop him in the first round, if I'm being honest. Because I don't think Nate's ever been stopped in the first round, but there's a first time for everything. Carlos Prates would absolutely rip through Nate Diaz if Nate Diaz was to come back at welterweight and fight. But yeah, interesting article from Nate Diaz. I guess he wants to get his name back out there and generate some hype, but he's not coming back for a world title. And if he is, he's getting his ass cooked. I think he struggles. Obviously, he struggles in those world title fights. He'll lose them. I honestly believe he would struggle to get a win against anyone ranked. No, I don't think he struggled. He wouldn't win against anyone ranked in the lightweight division or welterweight division. Based off how he looked in his past couple of fights, which at this point were years ago, he's 39. By the time this video comes out, it'll be a couple of weeks away from his 40th birthday. Nate Diaz has got no chance, bro. But always happy to be proved wrong. I won't be, but yeah, let's see. That's been it from me. Another episode of the Seth Solo Sidequest in the bag, episode 58, and I'm out. Peace.